China's ruling Communist Party has set in motion a controversial national security law for Hong Kong following pro-democracy protests last year. Now, this is a move that is seen as a major blow to the city's freedoms. But Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam, says she supports the decision, claiming it won't affect people's rights. So what do we know about this proposed law? Well, the plan has been submitted at the annual National People's Congress. They largely rubber-stamp decisions that have already been taken by the Communist leadership. The proposed new law will ban sedition, secession and treason, which means any protest could be punished more severely than in the past. Article 4 says Beijing can embed national intelligence agencies in the Hong Kong government to oversee its enforcement. And Beijing would be able to place the measure into basic law. Now, that's the mini-constitution on how Hong Kong is run, effectively bypassing the territory's own lawmakers. Here's Steve McDonald.
After more than 2 months' delay because of the coronavirus, China's most important annual political gathering is underway, and the symbolism is enormous. But thousands of delegates could gather under the same roof, including the country's senior political and military leadership, conveys an image of an emergency under control.
People from every walk of life have given their all. We've waged a total war against the virus. Our medical workers have fought with courage. Our servicemen and women have shouldered heavy responsibilities.
However, the Communist Party elite also heard that the crisis isn't yet over. And crucially, China's number 2 leader said there'd be no economic growth target for this year due to ongoing global uncertainty. But another issue overshadowed all of this, with the introduction of national security legislation for Hong Kong. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a bombshell targeting dissidents in the city.
We must take powerful measures to lawfully prevent, stop and punish them.
Following last year's summer of rebellion in Hong Kong, more than 7,000 protesters have been charged with public assembly and rioting crimes. Under these new provisions, they could face much more serious laws relating to subversion, secession and treason.
This is the end of Hong Kong. This is the end of one country, two systems. Make no mistake about it.
The US was hinting that the city's special trading status might be withdrawn, even before the details were revealed.
I don't know what it is because nobody knows yet. If it happens, we'll address that issue very strongly.
With this country every day edging closer and closer towards something like normality, the authorities here do have a good coronavirus story to tell. But with the world's attention still focused on fighting this disease, China's leaders have been accused of using this crisis as something of a smokescreen to try and introduce draconian laws at a time when this will attract much less attention than it otherwise would. Stephen McDonald, BBC News, Beijing.
Well, let's just show you some pictures we've just got in from Hong Kong a short time ago. These are pro-democracy reformists in Hong Kong's assembly, mounting a pretty small-scale demonstration there, but they are waving placards silently and trying to disrupt proceedings. And you can see them there being escorted out, not so quiet there at that moment. Well, Claudia Yip is a spokesperson for the Hong Kong Human Rights Monitor, a local human rights NGO monitoring the implementation of international human rights standards. And she joins me now from Hong Kong. Claudia, those people just now, those pro-democracy legislators are saying this is an end to Hong Kong, this is an end to autonomy and freedom. Do you agree with them?
I'm afraid it's been happening for quite a while. And this act by the Chinese government, I would say, is really making the situation much more precarious. As we know, Hong Kong, we used to enjoy the autonomy. It's promised in the Sino-British Joint Declaration and in the Basic Law. We have an autonomy in making laws, in law enforcement, etc. But the act by the National People's Congress to make laws for Hong Kong and also to impose national security institutions in Hong Kong to carry out those laws, is a complete disregard of the one country, two systems.
Claudia, can it be stopped in any way? Will Hong Kong officials have a say, or because Carrie Lam says she supports it, does that mean it's a done deal?
I really doubt anyone in the pro-establishment camp or in the government, in the Hong Kong government, will have the guts to stand up against the decision, because they have been briefed not to make any noise about it, just to say, yes, we support it. And that's what we have been hearing from the government, from Carrie Lam, and also from lawmakers who have been supportive of the government.
We watched day after day as young people came out onto the streets of Hong Kong, Claudia, pro-democracy protesters, so committed and so passionate to their cause. How are they feeling today?
To be honest, we have been living in this threat of China eroding Hong Kong's autonomy for quite a while now, at least since last year when they tried to pass the extradition bill. So for some people, they have already prepared for this moment for a long time, but still a lot of people are very angry about it. And the fear and
tear
the
gas
disapproval
once
of
again
this
shrouds the streets of Hong Kong. Protests returned after China pushed for a strict new national security law for the territory under cover of the coronavirus. The national security law is even more damaging and harmful than the extradition bill last year introduced by the government. And now, when time is running out in Hong Kong, we would describe now as the beginning of the end. We don't have enough time, but we still need to continue the fight. Opponents see this as the end of Hong Kong's one country, two systems relationship with China. The legislation that gives Beijing more surveillance powers is supported by Hong Kong's pro-Chinese legislators and local security chiefs.
Or this law will not affect the great majority of Hong Kong. I don't think the great majority of Hong Kong people have any interest whatsoever to subverting state power or the central government. So I don't think that is an issue.
Beijing's rubber stamp assembly is expected to approve the law next week, but protests on the small island may prove difficult to stamp out.
And for more on this, let's go to Hong Kong and speak to reporter Florence de Changy. Thanks for joining us. Can you tell us what are the concerns of the protesters?
Well, interestingly, today's protest was initially planned against another law called the National Flag and Anthem Law that the local parliament, LegCo, is about to pass. And since several opposition lawmakers have been disqualified, the pro-democracy camp has no means of blocking any legislation at the moment. So this law was meant to forbid people to be disrespectful toward the Chinese flag or the national anthem, as Hong Kong people actually love to do, as they see it as their right to continue to express their dislike of the Chinese flag and the Chinese anthem. But of course, since we heard last Thursday night that China was now going to impose a new national security law intended at clamping down on anything and everything, even remotely associated to treason, sedition, secession, foreign interference, terrorism, then, of course, the Hong Kongers have become even more concerned, and some of them think today is one of their last chance to protest under the common law of Hong Kong, as just protesting could soon be seen or treated as something much more serious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, can you tell us a bit more about this new law? It sounds like quite a comprehensive catch-all piece of legislation, given the list of things you just put forward.
Yeah, and to be fair, no one is 100% clear yet as to what it means and how it will be implemented, what will be the punishments for which offences, and more importantly, who will decide of the offences. It's not conceivable to imagine a separate set of courts in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is under common law, not under national law, and it has a very sound justice system. So China has also mentioned that it will now have agencies in Hong Kong staffed by its own people to monitor more closely the situation related to national security. So people are really asking, How will this work? Some Hong Kongers are worried that they could be sent to China for trials, which is very scary, obviously. So the short answer is that we don't really know for sure. And even Carrie Lam, the chief executive here, she has welcomed this decision. She has no choice, but she said she doesn't have the details.